The NHL playoffs are well underway. 8 teams have already felt the cold stab of elimination. But for most, this fate has already been delivered to their doorstep. Knock knock, a consolation prize awaits. The everyday earbuds from Raycon, the sponsor of this video. Now upgraded and refined to make them even better than before. Think of the efficiency, sound, and quality of the major brands out there today. Now consider that Raycons are roughly half the price of them. They've sold 3 million of these babies for good reason. They represent value. The everyday earbuds offer a plethora of features rivaling high-end competitors. Think optimized gel tips for a custom fit, active noise cancellation, and sweat resistance for those hot summer days. When there's chores to be done, the Raycons come on. Can they do them for me? Quite frankly, the updated model makes this the perfect time to try them out. There's a 30-day happiness guarantee in case you're not satisfied. Even better, click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/utree to get 20% off your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. It's a foolproof transaction for the offseason. You could argue that Raycons perform a lot better than more than a few of these franchises. Although in some cases they run circles around them. Feels like ancient history when I think about it. With the archaeologist unearthing an incredible discovery of the Ducks having a solid October. Remember that? When they were the potential surprise of the league for a hot minute? It had the shelf life of milk. Instantly curdling and rancid the moment November rolled around. To that point, it's best you don't pay attention to Anaheim. I don't think the Ducks themselves did either. Sadly, it's still somehow better than last year. They have some pieces that could be playoff contributors in the future. Although we've been saying that for about 3 or so years now, but there's a chance McTavish, Minchikov, and Carlson could be excellent. Yet it won't be enough. The Ducks have slid from chaos to absolute nothingness. Nothing grows here. Just the whims and long shots of what could be hope followed by relentless decay. How do you get out of it? Better men than me have gone insane trying. The regular season honestly meant nothing for the Yotes. It was a side piece for the real drama that was occurring off the ice, but it occurred nonetheless. Arizona had themselves a year. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. A young team showing morsels of what could be a brighter future in days ahead. Clayton Keller and Dylan Genther emerging as core pieces of the team. Josh Doan made his long-awaited debut. A smattering of 20-goal scorers like Nick Schmaltz, Logan Cooley, Larson Krause, and Michael Carcone. I'd say more, but the typical late-season collapse happened to them yet again. Once February hit, that became as embarrassing to see as the team Twitter account ran by the owner's son. Oh boy, trusting the Nepo baby that ran Shane Doan out of town by denying him promotion. Great stuff! After Tempe died, it was inevitable that they'd move. There was no concrete arena plan in place, and they couldn't play in a college rink for another 3 to 5 years. The Yotes may have howled for the last time. They're going to Salt Lake City. The Thrashers undone by the shittiest of ownership, financial bleeding, and lack of winning. Perhaps this disaster in the desert can be learned from. Phoenix has a chance to get an expansion team if they move mountains and build an arena. There's land up for auction on the outskirts of Phoenix in late June. But if it's owned by Alex Maruello, you're just asking to set yourself on fire. I need to make a personal note to never hype up the Sabres before they prove a damn thing. Late season momentum gives me inspiration that they'll make a strong push. Ignore it. The lack of defensive structure and issues in goaltending will cause everything to go to shit. That won't do it. The injuries to players throughout the lineup will. That's the problem with Buffalo. And it's been one for a number of years now. Flashes of brilliance with potential oozing out of every pore, yet can't develop this thing called consistency. Must be one of those mythological MacGuffins that gives the Penguins all that bullshit luck of theirs. One of the youngest teams in hockey, but it doesn't matter. 13 straight years of no playoffs and patience is wearing thin. Don Granato was a good coach for them when he was hired, but he can't take them any further. No shock that he was relieved of duty. Throwbacks are in style, baby. Mid-2000s nostalgia tour's coming to Buffalo. Welcome back Lindy Ruff to Sabres country. He led a young team in New Jersey to success in 2023. Ignore this past year, though. That doesn't count. Will it work? Well, it can't get worse, can it? The Flames are what they are at this point. A purely mediocre team wandering the desert of lost opportunities and closing windows. Weighed down by years of failed expectations and the spurning of star players both old and new. Traumatized by the damage done by Daryl Sarter's incarceration. As Calgary sees nothing but sand and scorn, nightfall closes in. The cold embrace of shedding players for as many futures as possible. The Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, and Chris Tanev have departed for greener pastures. They probably wish they could do the same to Jonathan Huberdeau. What a colossal disappointment he's been as a Flame. Calgary, in response to selling off whatever they could, immediately sold off anything resembling winning after the deadline. Their fate had already been sealed. As the crossroads are reached in their franchise once again, where do they go from here? Dustin Wolf shows promise, but can they get anything of value for Jacob Markstrom in the offseason? What happens with Oliver Shillington and Andrew Mangiapane? Will they ever get out of their self-imposed abyss? Signs point to no. Let me tell you the story of the 2023-24 Blackhawks. Everyone died. The end. We all knew they were gonna suck this year, but dealing with that kind of physical pain is tough to fathom. Unless you believe in a thing called karma delivered by the cosmos itself. Connor Bedard is a beast whenever he's on the ice. Then he got injured for a bit, and there was literally no reason to watch this team. Anyone else with a damn had long been gone by that point. Even Corey Perry. Merely accruing lottery balls in the hopes of securing Celebrini. That and Bedard were the only legacies of this season for Chicago. The good news for the rest of the league is that they didn't win the first pick in the draft. The bad news is they got number 2. Ivan Demidov will probably be coming their way. Him and Bedard wreaking havoc on the Central in the future. Their opponents can't wait. The Columbus Conundrum is an enigma of many things. As young and stocked as they may seem, everything falls apart around them. Dreams of gold are touched and dissipate into dust. As underwhelming and cursed as Johnny Hockey in this jersey. Or Patrick Laine, depending on what you fancy. No matter what this franchise tries to accomplish, they wish it on a monkey's paw. Endless injuries, poor roster fits, another year of disastrous goaltending returns, and endlessly blown leads. That's Columbus. A franchise continually undone by its own failure. And one having another organizational overhaul by firing Jarmo Kekalainen mid-season. Great. When's John Davidson next? Watching this entire season is a damning look for everyone involved. It started with Mike Babcock, it ended with another long losing skid. And right on cue, they get fucked over in the draft lottery because the NHL hates them. The league knows to never trust the Jackets. Like our casket, they'll always let us down. The Red Wings were 2 separate franchises this season. One group was with Dylan Larkin. As their captain led the way, Detroit was a formidable playoff contender featuring a strong forward core, quality play in 3 zones, and a 100-point pace. Then there's the team without Larkin. Once they lost him to injury on several occasions, the Wings were clipped and fell to their death repeatedly. It's one thing to get some dip in production without your captain, but featuring a 4-11 record? That's actually pathetic. They magically degraded into the hockey equivalent of a smooth brain. No Larkin threw them back into the pit. And a March freefall led them to mass panic. Stevie read them the riot act in the locker room, for God's sake. It did work for a bit. They rebounded to fight to the last moment for a playoff spot. There were last-minute comebacks and overtime thrillers that saved their bacon, but you know what ended them? An empty net goal allowed by Philly when they were tied with Washington. If that doesn't signify Detroit's season, I don't know what does. Now there are some questions to ask. Why is a team with so much alleged depth useless without Larkin? Is Patrick Kane gonna want to stay around? What happens with a logjam on defense? It's progress, but sometimes progress is painful. We should know. Let's be frank, the Wild season was doomed from the beginning. All you have to do is look at Jared Spurgeon. Out for the start of the year, comes back to limited impact, and then gets shelved thanks to season-ending surgery. When the franchise is still dealing with the sins of those 2 deals with the devil, there's little margin for error. Starting the season out that poorly merely drove a dagger in their heart. Their god-awful penalty kill and sluggish goaltending were merely extra wounds to deal with. Mediocrity is a dangerous beast, and Minnesota's been sleeping with it long term. The good news is that it might be over soon. There's only 1 more year left of the Parise and Suter deadweight. Most of their core players are still performing solidly. The flower will bloom one last time in the Wild next year. And it was a season of transition and change. A young core starting to emerge with the likes of Boldy, Rossi, and Faber. Bill Guerin purging high-ranking generals in his army to weed out dissent. And that includes Dean Evison. But bringing in John Hines? Bold choice. Kind of like pulling your goalie in overtime. If it works once, you're insanely lucky. If you try it again, it's not gonna go so well. Close, but never close enough. The Wild in a nutshell. This wasn't too much of a surprise. The Canadiens are still rebuilding after falling for the Sirens' call of the Cup. As they try to reforge a core identity, their season was undone by the same thing that's wrecked them the past few years. Mass amounts of injuries. Start with Kirby Dach, continue with Alex Newhook, and then just keep going on from there. The pain will continue with a whopping 16 losses in overtime or shootout. Brutality. They only hope this misery will eventually end. There are some hopeful revelations inbound. Juraj Slafkovsky and Nick Suzuki have shown they have the ability to lead a future core. They got another first-rounder for Sean Monahan. They have interesting pieces coming from the farm system. But what do you do about goalie? Montembeault is decent, but is he a starter? Caden Primo had a good stint to end the year. Do they go for a big fish or roll with what they have? Despite their pain, the grace period is almost over. Progress will have to be made. If not, you turn into Buffalo. You can't do that. I consider the Devils to be Stanley Cup contenders. What the fuck was this shit? Is this some massive jinx devised by the cruelest of gods? I could see it with all the ailments New Jersey had at the start of the year. It wasn't just one or two guys, it was nearly every star under the sun that fell. Some of them multiple times like Hughes. Others like Michael McLeod were lost to criminal proceedings. Think of it like the finest Lamborghini off the assembly line with a rusty interior. Looks so sexy and purrs like a kitten. For about 5 minutes. Then the muffler falls off and goaltending can't make a damn save. Oh, the goaltending! How god-awful was that this year? Free quality options we were advertised. If they were death, painful death, and decapitation, then they'd be correct. A group so awful that it was desperately overhauled at the deadline. Vitek Vanacek was exiled to hockey hell in San Jose. Team defense also didn't do them any favors. But unfortunately for Lindy Ruff, he can't put on goalie pads. If he could, he might not have been sacrificed to cover up for Tom Fitzgerald fucking up the offseason. Botching worthy of latter stage Lou. You thought things were a disaster in New Jersey? You're being too nice. Name your price for Yusei Saros, Nashville. The Devils will pay it and then some. Gene Melnick's death was supposed to signify the end of the circus being hosted at Canada. Unfortunately for Sens fans, this clown train doesn't have any brakes. The show must go on. And it does by means of losing a future first-round pick after Dodonov Gate. As to which year they lose it is to be determined. This fuck-up was the final straw for Pierre Dorian, which might be a blessing when thinking about his confusing reign. DJ Smith also suffered the same fate, but does anyone really miss him? They might miss Josh Norris as he suffered another season-ending injury. They certainly won't miss all the injuries they had on defense to start the year. Can't miss the team depth since that's pretty much non-existent to begin with. What's goaltending? That hasn't been a thing here since 2017. You thought Korpisalo was gonna maintain form in Ottawa? Fuck to the no. Everything that could go wrong has and probably will forevermore. Remember to never ever have hope for this team. They'll find a way to ruin it. Case in point, you have fine offensive talents in the top 6. You have a chance to bring in a quality coach to build culture and you hire Travis Green? What logic does that make? Everyone who followed this team knew that it wouldn't be if the Flyers would regress back to the mean. It was when. Nothing to imply that their strong performance wasn't earned. Their open defiance of every analytical model and critic with a pulse was inspiring stuff. A group that played hard and gutted out win after win in the face of a supposed rebuild. In spite of the underlying red flags and god-awful power play. Even when Carter Hart was lost to crimes in junior, they still performed well under Samuel Ersson. They were making us all shit our pants in the fear of them making the playoffs. Them? Playoffs? Crazy talk. There's a problem with chances at the 11th hour. The Flyers' clock struck midnight. They crashed back to reality at the worst possible time. All the eruptions of Mount Tortorella couldn't stop them from losing 8 straight. Can't really make fun of them for it. Philly just ran out of gas. And the sad thing is, this is probably the best season the Flyers have had in a bit. Even when they were getting blown out in the first round previously, things didn't feel this optimistic. They have some momentum to work with next season. And this summer will be fascinating. If the right moves are made, they'll be in business. Now about Carter Hart. I don't know what's gonna happen there. If you've been following this team for any period of time, this year's outcome shouldn't be surprising. What a frustrating group. Strong goaltending undone by bad team depth and a god-awful power play. All of that supposed talent in the lineup and you can't score a goal in the man advantage for a fucking month? The only thing those two units did was generate momentum for the other team. And constant losing forced the Pens to sell for the first time in an age. Yet the frustrations don't end. It suddenly found great form and started winning. They were about to bullshit into a playoff spot because every single thing went right. Until it fell short again. The surface level take would be to blame the Boston game for their elimination. They controlled their own destiny, you know. That's a cheap excuse. You know what really knocked them out? Giving up a goal with seconds left against Anaheim on a 5-on-3 power play. Blowing a 2-goal lead in the third period to Calgary. Pissing away a 4-0 lead against the Avs. And the Yager jersey retirement game, where they honored him by being shit on the power play and blew another lead. Notice a trend? Todd Reardon was useless as power play coach, but this team refuses to admit the dream is dead. The core's still locked up long term, it can't die! Yet they aren't doing much to change it. Your move, FSG. Or just sit around and do nothing as always. Oh, what a fantastic tank job this was. The Sharks stripped down to the studs for one collective purpose. To lose. And glorious losing they did. Giving up 10 goals in back-to-back games. A 3-15-2 start. Some of the worst statistical metrics known to man. Shedding the 8-year contracts given out by Doug Wilson in his final days. I don't think anyone's taking on the Vlasic anchor, but they were able to get out of the Tomas Hertl deal. They had to sell him for pennies on the dollar to their mortal enemy, but they're out of it. Now, only if Logan Couture could stay healthy, he'd see the rewards of the tank. First overall pick is theirs. Macklin Celebrini will be a Shark. Not to mention another top 15 pick from Pittsburgh. The rebuild's gonna get a shot in the arm. Plus, with Will Smith on the way, San Jose should at least have something to watch soon. Honestly, their best move might have been firing David Quinn. Dude's been fucking useless at this level. On my future trivia question of the highest point total on the team this year. That would be Mikael Granlund. The Sharks answered a Dick Tarnstrom. The thing with great eras is that they'll sometimes fade into nothingness. There's no grand send-off, no epic finale, just a slow vanish into the ether. The age of Gloria has come to an end. There were hints and morsels of knowledge that led to this path, but this season confirmed it. Starting the campaign out so poorly merely hastened the inevitable. As sluggish as Jordan Kyrie's stall out in October and November. The team may be highly flawed with a bunch of bad contracts in defense and a mercurial goaltender, but they need a new voice in the locker room. Craig Berube did a lot for this franchise, yet his expiration date has been reached. A somber ending. Even more somber for the fact that the Blues would eventually find solid form to end the year, only to miss the playoffs by a few points. If that's not peak St. Louis hockey, then sliced bagels aren't an affront to food. Squarely back in the mid-tier. Glories in the sun were fleeting. Back to the mosh pit they go. Drew Bannister did good work with them and his interim tag has been shed, but where do they go from here? They have damn good pieces in the forward core, but is it enough to inspire confidence? Especially with the bad contracts in defense? That's the question. Can you even be all that confident when you lose to the Sharks 3 times in a year? Really? You got blown out by them twice? We expected regression from the Kraken this season. The team catching fire last spring with some unsustainable shooting percentages, it was certain. This much regression was not. The thing I never understood is how a team with that much depth last year can suddenly go through a scoring drought rivaling Leisure Suit Larry. Sadly, there's no video game that can help them get lucky. All they get are serious injuries to the likes of Andrei Burakovsky. Joey Daccord can have an excellent season that inspires hope, but if you can't produce goals, it's over. Their highlights were the Stadium Series game, and that was pretty much it. The freefall they had after the start of March merely solidified it. Last year may have been outperforming expectations, but now they've just stalled out. The Kraken need an overhaul. Dave Hackstall, get the fuck out. Nothing personal, but if the players are threatening not to re-sign if you're still here, that's a no-brainer. Weird, I'm not a fan of his, but he never struck me as having a Daryl Sutter in him. Ronnie Franchise knows his seat's getting hot. Here is his gambit. Hopefully it can get them out of mid.
Here they are, Dave Falk. Here they come. The players, they have embraced this community already, and why not?